Greed is a nasty word. People talk about today's greed, but come on, people have always been greedy. Greed's a constant. The beauty of a free market, though, is that it harnesses greed. So pursuing profit produces good stuff for most everyone. The way to get rich at a free market is to serve your customers well. I think that makes the market moral. Maybe I shouldn't use the word greed. I should call it enlightened self-interest. Two people who have done more than most anyone to explain how capitalism is moral are Steve Forbes, author of the new book, Freedom Manifesto, Why Free Markets Are Moral and Big Government Isn't, and Arthur Brooks of the American Enterprise Institute. Arthur, you recently made a video that tries to explain the morality of free enterprise. It's already been viewed 100,000 times on YouTube. Before we talk about greed, let's play this part of your video.
Since 1970, the worst poverty in the world, which is to say, the percentage of the population that lives on $1 a day or less, has declined by 80%. 80%! There's been no achievement like that in human history. Billions of people have been lifted out of poverty. It's the most amazing thing that humanity has ever accomplished. So what happened? Was it the incredible success of the United Nations? Was it central planning or the International Monetary Fund or global foreign aid? Of course not. It was globalization. It was free trade. It was entrepreneurship. It was property rights. It was rule of law. In short, it was free enterprise that saved all those people. If we want more prosperity, and not just for us, but for people all over the world who are poor, we have to stand up for the free enterprise system. It's truly the system for good Samaritans.
Most people don't believe that. I would say most people think it is the UN or foreign aid or central planning. China's boomed.
Right. It's wrong. It turns out that what saved China was that since 1980, they've opened up to foreign trade. Look, they're still a totalitarian dictatorship. There's a lot of stuff wrong. But one of the things they've gotten right is empowering entrepreneurs and opening up to trade with the United States, which since 1980 is up 1,000%.
And also they started to honor private property around
exactly,
that time.
There's only one way to do it.
We have this graph that shows how China has boomed, not just since they started central planning, but when they recognized private property.
That's right. This is literally what we've seen since 1980 has lifted 400 million Chinese out of poverty.
But Steve, I would say most Americans think trade hurts the average American, or certainly the guy working in the factory, because if it's with China, he's losing a job to somebody in China.
Well, this gets to your introduction on the word greed. Greed in people's minds means taking something that doesn't belong to you. In the free market, what you have is transactions. You want something, I want something, we have an exchange. Money makes it much easier. They might want a treasury bill, I may want a pair of socks, we make a swap. And so that way we each get something. And we have a free market where people can do things, innovate, and try things, and see what people want. You see, free markets, and this is what the UN won't tell you, is free markets is about meeting the needs and wants of other people. Government's about meeting its own needs. And Arthur is right. 40 million companies in China are what is driving that economy, not the state-owned companies.
But the perception is free markets are cold, amoral, uncaring.
They're actually the opposite. They're the biggest breaker down of barriers between people. You may not love your neighbor, but you sure want to sell you to your neighbor. We take it for granted, John, in this country, that if you start a business, you want the best people possible because you want to succeed. That's new in human history. Before, you rarely trusted anyone beyond your immediate family or community or ethnic group. Commerce breaks down those barriers, so people, whether they know it or not, they're cooperating with each other.
Think about it this way. All three of us, we descended from immigrants. Most Americans descended from immigrants. I bet your great-grandparents, John, didn't come to America saying, I want to get to America for a better system of forced income redistribution.
I bet my father, actually, but no.
Yeah, I bet your ancestors.
He came here to clean toilets and then to repair toilets.
He came here to be rewarded for his hard work and merit for the first time in his life. That's what markets allow us to do. They're the great equalizer. I work harder, I innovate, I get rewarded. That doesn't happen in other countries. That's why markets are not about greed. Markets are about a better life through earned success.
But the poor, I'm told, are left behind. Paul Krugman talking about Paul Ryan's budget. He says Paul Ryan explicitly is trying to make life harder for the poor.
Yeah, that's completely false, and I'll tell you why.
It goes with your argument about dependency, but you want to cut off all these programs and make the poor suffer?
Actually, I don't. What I want to do is, for the truly poor of this country, we need two things. We need relief and we need opportunity. If you want to guarantee relief to the most indigent members of society, you must have a functioning economy. You and I will be inconvenienced by a debt crisis in this country, which will come if we don't change course. The poor will lose everything, and that's catastrophic, and that's immoral.
And that's why they need bigger programs, they say.
And Krugman assumes once you're poor, you're always poor. He assumes like we're still in medieval Europe, once a peasant, always a peasant. No, here you become a landlord.
All right, but address the criticism, because what they're saying is that we who want to cut are going to punish the poor, as Chris Matthews put it. They believe the way to get rich is to work harder and give the rich people more money. That'll help them. The way to get the poor people to work harder is to screw them. Take away their programs.
No, it takes away their dependency. So they're not dependent on Uncle Sam. It gives them a sense of empowerment, allows them to get skills so
They'll
they can move
starve.
up. Food stamps. You ever heard of food stamps? 30 years ago, Chris Matthews would have said, we should have a program so everyone gets a cell phone. They cost them $3,995. Today, if Chris Matthews had his way or Krugman had his way, it would be $10,995. They'd be decrying selfish cell phone makers and the like, and we'd have like we have health care. Scarcity into abundance, creating resources. That's what about, not their static mind of a medieval economy.
Nobody wants to throw Granny out in the snow. Nobody wants to take away all services from the poor. What we want is to make sure people don't become dependent and people still live in an opportunity society. And the rest of us actually are on our own, to make our own way, to earn our own success, to live a dignified life in which we can say, I earned that.
Thank you, Arthur Brooks and Steve Forbes.